On the 9th of February 2018, a tweet came from HM Treasury, right? And this is what was said. Here's today's surprising Friday fact. Millions of you have helped end the slave trade through your taxes. Did you know in 1833, Britain used £20 million, 40% of its national budget, to buy freedom for all slaves in the empire? The amount of money borrowed for the Slavery Abolition Act was so large that it wasn't paid off until 2015, which means that living British citizens helped pay to end the slave trade. Now, there's so much wrong with that, I can't even begin. Oh, by the way, this tweet was actually deleted later on.
So here's my initial anger with this tweet. First of all, everything about this tweet screams to me white privilege and a position of superiority. Do you know why? Because I actually believe when they posted this tweet, they thought, oh, I know, we will position ourselves, Great Britain, as being this wonderful, great nation that not only has, created great fiscal policy, I guess discovered new countries, discovered the Commonwealth, but we've also helped to end slavery. And I think that's the reason why they put the tweet out. But they're so superior and so out of touch with humanity and out of touch with actually what needs to be done and what people think and know about history, that actually this tweet that was only put out because of the Freedom of Information Act, by the way, that's the only reason it's put out there, that they're so far away from humanity. That's the reason why I think they put it out there. Second of all, it's factually incorrect. So slavery wasn't abolished in the 1830s. It was meant to be abolished in 1807.
1807 is when the slave trade was abolished. So you couldn't go and get a boat from Bristol to West Africa, to America. You couldn't do that anymore. Slavery was still happening until 1833. That's what they're talking about. The actual slavery was abolished in 1833, but the slave trade was abolished
1807. Yeah. Also, I'm just going to need to understand why they think it's okay. Actually, no, not okay. I'm going to need someone to run me my money. Let's just cut to the chase. Run me my money. Because what you're telling me is that I am in my 30s and it's 2020 and we have been paying off this humongous debt that you remunerated, not to the slaves, not to the countries that you raped and pillaged and stole from, and whatever else you think comes under the term discovery, but you actually remunerated the slave owners that were already benefiting from an economic superpower that you had created yourselves. So you kidnapped people and made them work, and you treated them less than animals. And now what happened was, because of that Slavery Act, because suddenly we've now got, and I just want to say here, everyone talks about William Wilberforce as an abolitionist, but there were actually several black abolitionists, but we don't ever know who they are. Wonder why that is. But now because of abolitionists, now you've abolished slavery, and now because of that you've decided you need to remunerate the slave owners and all their families so much money that we had to pay for it for what? Up until 2015. That is wild to me. But I just need someone to explain to me what I have been paying for that. So, I want someone to tell me right now.
There's a couple of things with that. So the slave trade was abolished in 1807. Now, usually in the British mind, they feel like they almost act like it was a morally superior thing for them to do what they did in 1807, when really it was a economic decision and the position that was influenced by their fear. Right, 1804 was the end of the Haitian Revolution. They were scared. They were getting scared of all the slave revolts that are happening. Right, and they thought. On this, we can't keep going on and fighting these Africans. Some of them are actually really serious, and we're just going to lose a lot of money and a lot of life. I mean, the Haitian Revolution is the reason why the center of the USA is now belongs to USA and not France. The losing was basically France selling their interest in the US to the 13 colonies. Right. That's how much the Haitian Revolution ruined France's their economy at the time, their reign in the New World, right? That was frightening for UK. But then also at the same time, William Wilberforce was obviously he obviously was a moral man and obviously wanted slavery done. I don't doubt that. But there's so many things that were happening at the same time that meant it was okay. It's now it now makes sense to end in the slave trade. The second thing is, obviously, abolitionists, kept trying to get slavery as a whole abolished, right? But the thing is, there's two things. There's a moral question and there's an economic question. And then there's the question of the British attitudes towards property, right? So in Britain, property was sacred. So if you're going to abolish slavery, most of these British people are saying, well, you're taking my property, which means I need to get paid for that property. So the reason they got reparations, or the reason they got compensation, is because in the rule of law, they were deprived of their property. So it's a weird thing, because abolitionists had to agree with the fact that it was property that they were taking from people. So there was still people.
I think they agreed. I just think they thought it was part of the package.
They had to, because they didn't even have a choice. They had to kind of agree that these people were still property. So it's still dehumanizing them. So you're not really helping that much. You're just leaving these black people in the Caribbean and making the people that owned them even richer. This money was loaned by the Rothschilds. 75% of it was loaned by the Rothschilds, right? So these are the people that have really had the government by their testicles ever since 1833, and we've been paying them for a very, 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 very long time. 300 billion is what they say. Well, I've seen the very different amounts here and there. 20 million was about 300 billion. I've seen people say it was 100 billion. Whatever, it's a lot of money. And it means that a lot of money I'm worth a lot of money. And so are you, right? So I want that money back.
How much it is, it matters that I have been contributing to that, and so have my parents, and so have my grandparents.
Britain's role in the slave trade it's linked to the way we live today. People that had plantations and came back to the UK were able to build themselves massive country manors. Sugar being a staple in British diet from the 19th century, because that's what they did in Jamaica. They grew sugar.
If you think about the great powerhouses and the great families that have generational wealth in the country, in the UK, a lot of them are confectionery companies. Confectionaries, staple ingredient is sugar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Sugar became cheap because obviously it was, cheaply created, because you didn't have to pay for the people that are working on it. Even British financial institutions, different commercial institutions, it's built off slavery money, basically. Lloyd's of London was a particular one that was mentioned. Lloyd's of London used to be a coffee house. And back in the day, when they used to run after the slaves that were actually in the UK, when they found those slaves, they used to come back to the coffee house, which was Lloyd's of London. Lloyd's of London then started to insure slave owners, and Lloyd's is what it is today.
What a horrid, tumultuous, disgusting past. Like, what a horrid history. It makes you wonder why anybody's proud to be British. I said what I said, and I don't care.
And it's not even the distancing. So even going back to, like, the fact that the British will do anything to distance themselves from the history of slavery, but the slave owners who were in America were also expats, of Europe. White people are not native to America. So these were people who just went to another continent and had the slaves there. So to me, I just understand, there's no logical way to which to detach yourself as Britain from slavery. And even just the sentiment on the tweet that they said, like, fun fact, I don't even know, let me just bring up, because I had the tweet on my phone. I've just lost it. But even just the sentiment, the way in which they had tweeted that, the Treasury tweeted that, just shows that there's such a lack of, I think it's a mixture of a lack of education and a lack of, mainly a lack of education, but just ignorance, willful and blissful ignorance, as well as, like, honest, like, okay, I didn't know, but also willful, blissful ignorance, and not even reading the room. But there's no intelligence in that at all to even put out a tweet like that, but even write it in the way that they did. Anyway,
basically, when you deep it on its lowest, the lowest common denominator, what the HMRC, no, sorry, the British Treasury said was, hi everybody, just so you know, for the past 200 and so years, you have all been contributing to paying off the debts that this country has, because we decided to pay slave owners for your ancestors who were stolen, kidnapped, raped, abused, and killed in another country for our gain. Mm-hmm. No, sorry. No, oh, maybe we should have done that. Just, you've been paying for that. Like, I don't understand the lack of humility or like the lack of sensitivity that they thought was required. Like, I don't understand why they thought that was a fun fact. I don't understand why they thought they should be even promoting. And I'm still confused as to why somebody hasn't given me my money. I need somebody to run me my money. And to be very clear, you can run me my money, but it doesn't mean that we're equal. You can begin to try to remunerate me and give me some level of compensation, but there's nothing you can do to compensate me or anybody who identifies as Black in this country for the treatment of what you guys have done to the rest of the world. It's like there's nothing they can do.
Yeah, it's pretty cut and dry that we're owed something more than something substantial for our. And you know what? Every time I hear somebody arguing against reparations, it's but you weren't here doing the work. Yeah, but you weren't here getting the wealth that you've inherited. You weren't here; it was inherited.
But they have the wealth, though. They have the wealth that they've inherited. They didn't do anything to deserve that wealth. We were taken away and they received wealth, and they shouldn't have received it. And they were receiving that wealth up until 2015. So to be honest, that argument to me is null and void.
Mm-hmm. No, not even that. They were receiving the payment for releasing the slaves up until 2015. But the wealth that they've inherited for the work continues up until today. It's compounded every single year. It doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Right.